through them both and still be in plenty of time. These are one of those chapters where we're really just telling a couple stories. The Bible tells the story. We'll give a couple pointers, and that'll be just about okay. A couple interesting watches. Go ahead and pray. First, Father, again, we thank you that we get to meet here. Pray you to bless us as we meet. Help us to learn. Help us to apply this Bible study to our lives and use it. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. An interesting tidbit of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. Joseph is the only one where there's no recorded time that God appears to him and speaks to him. Joseph is the embodiment of Romans chapter 8, verse 28. For all things work together for good to them who love God and who are called according to their purpose. There are 20, I was reading a book about Genesis, a little bit about Joseph, 20 some odd correlations between Joseph and Jesus. To me, it's kind of on the nose, but one of them, the bloody coat of many colors was taken. The other one was Jesus was taken, and they cast lots for it. Just stuff like that. Both went down into Egypt. But let me ask you a question. Joseph, this is going to be a spoiler for you. Joseph is getting up the number 2 person in Egypt. Could God have made this happen without his being sold into slavery? Yes. Okay. So the story that we're about to tell in Genesis 39, Joseph still could have been the number 2 in Egypt without this happening, correct? Okay. I taught this one time, and I had somebody get you know what it was? Got genuinely mad at me. I don't know if it's because Joseph is a correlation between of Jesus Christ. Joseph wasn't sinless, and Joseph faced temptation here, and he eschewed it. That's good. Let's go ahead and pick up here verse 1. It's only 23 verses on this chapter, and again, these ones we're just going to be talking, reading quick, and going through there if you don't mind. First one. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of the Pharaoh, captain of the guard. And so this is Potiphar would be a high-ranking military official. An Egyptian bought him out of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. And so remember, Ishmaelites, Gileadites, I kind of bunged up that up a little bit, but hey, somebody sold him. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. Now, interesting thing, Joseph and Benjamin seem to get all of their dad's attention. It's interesting also that then he's the one that ends up, he works well, he does well. And you find here, his master saw that the Lord was with him, and the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight and served him, and he made him overseer over his house and all they had put into his hand. So Joseph was in charge of Potiphar's house, right? That would mean in charge of the staff, in charge of the budget. The food's being put down in front of Potiphar, it's because Joseph ordered it so. Are we in agreement on this? Okay. Are we in verse 5? Yeah. And it came to pass from time to time that he made him overseer of his house and over all that he had. The Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake, and the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in his house and in the field. And so he sees this, he sees a good thing, and he just lets it ride. When you see that somebody's blessing, God's blessing somebody, be a blessing to that person. It's the whole Abraham thing. I will bless him, but bless thee, and curse him, that curseth thee. And I knew that. When I went to Bible college, I saw, man, Brother Hooker is being blessed by God. I'm going to make sure I'm a blessing to him. Sometimes we get this thing where, well, if they're being blessed by God, I want to be a receiver of that as well. And, be a blessing to those that God's being a blessing to. Anyways, that isn't always financial, by the way. Don't think about it. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he knew not aught he had, save the bread which he did eat, and Joseph was a goodly person, well favored. So we're backed up here. And it came to pass after these things that his wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, lie with me. Now this isn't a nap. There's something in a guy that notices things like this. You ladies, you've got to be careful with your compliments. You've got to be careful, eye contact, smile, all that sorts of neat stuff. You've got to be, just guys and humans are like this. But Joseph, I think, here had a little bit of a problem. He was in charge of everything. Every person, every dime, every meal. So now, right here in verse 7, we see Potiphar's wife say, hey, lie with me. Right? From this point forward, Joseph should have had somebody with him going in the house. Joseph didn't do anything wrong here. But he still ends up in prison. If he would have just started taking, some staff in there with him, hey, go with me. And but he refused and said to his master's wife, behold, my master wotteth not what is with me in the house, and that he hath committed all that he hath to my hand. There is none greater in this house than I, neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? And so at that point, and by the way, can we also point this out? He's been sold by his brothers. He's sold as a slave into Egypt. He's at Potiphar's house, but yet he's still serving God. How many times do we as humans, we've had something bad happen, and all of a sudden now we're looking at God, we're blaming him. We lose our job. Something bad happens. Whatever the case is, well, God, why can't you stop this from happening? That's not what Joseph did here. Now, I'm not saying we can't blame God, and, if something bad happens to you, God, what in the world's going on here? You realize God's big enough, he can handle you disagreeing with him. He can handle you complaining. Matter of fact, he would probably rather we complain to him than complain to other people. And, getting on God's case is something he can handle. He's better to do with respect. But here we see Joseph is still serving God. And it came to pass, as she spake to Joseph day by day, and this is every day, they hearkened not unto her, but to lie to her or to be with her. Notice that, and to be with her, that's a step up from lie with her. Hey, why don't we run off somewhere? And so, I think, personally, this is what made the person mad. Joseph is enjoying the attention. Humans enjoy attention, don't we? And so if that attention's enjoyed here, I believe that Joseph was hanging around and letting the compliments happen. No, you can tell when somebody's being flirty with you. I've been told a couple times by Lisa, I use a different voice depending on who I'm talking to, and I guess you have to be careful with some of those things. And but you can tell when somebody's starting to be a little too extra kind. Usually it's just customer service when they do it. And but anyways, by the way, Matt, Burkhead 1:1 is this verse: "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned." It is in the Bible. We just had this discussion a couple days ago. It is in the Bible. It's just implied here in the next chapter. And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men of the house there within. You got to be careful. It used to be that I could say I have never been alone in a car or a house with a woman. That's no longer the case. Sometimes you go in the professional world, that by necessity changes. But those situations, you don't know what you would do. I would never do that. That's the thing that Peter said before he denied the Lord. I'd never do that. And and so sometimes what you need to do is listen to your spouse's intuition. You see something on Facebook, you're like, you know what? You need to block that person. You know what my answer is? Okay. Done. Hey Lisa, I don't like this guy. Well, neither do I. Well, I don't care. Block him. And so, trust your spouse's intuition. Even if it's not on the nose, even if it's wrong, it's still your spouse asking you not to have contact with somebody of the opposite sex. There you go. And that should be enough to kill the conversation as well. Let's see. Where are we at? So he was in the house alone. Not saying that's a bad thing, but in this instance it was. I think he knew he shouldn't have been there. And she caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand. and fled and got him out. So grabbed him by the coat. He was close enough for that. He just ran without it. It came to pass, when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and was fled forth, that she called unto the men of her house, and spake unto them, saying, See, he hath brought in an Hebrew unto us to mock us. Interesting thing here, Potiphar's wife is speaking ill of Potiphar to other people. And he brought in this Egyptian, or this Hebrew. What is he doing? Don't ever do that. Don't ever speak negatively about your spouse to another person. Just don't do it. And especially to somebody of the opposite sex. Now, you want to go, counseling, whatever the case is, or, you need something fixed, I guess, be judicious with it. But however, I can't think of any time that something has come well of you speaking speaking ill of your significant other to other people. She's doing it in front of the entire staff. We've said it before. To speak ill of your wife to your mother, or to your dad about your wife, you are just asking for trouble. I got to see this in my own family, of course, with us. My mom, us boys could do no wrong. And Mike spoke a lot of ill, made fun of his wife to my mom a lot. And then gas. My mom ended up not liking Stacy. Guess where that came from? They had a horrible relationship. Then all of a sudden, Mike passes. Stacy's gone. No contact. I mean, we have contact on occasion, but we have family get-togethers. No Stacy. Occasionally. And all of it really is Mike's fault. It's my mom's as well for letting it happen. And so what you do is you build wedges when you do things like that, and you also lose some trust. So don't do those things. And he came in unto me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. Of course, there's no one else in the house, so they can't refute it. And it came to pass when he heard me lift up my voice and cried that he left his garment with me and fled and got him out. She laid his garment by her until his Lord came. And she spake unto him according to these words, saying, The Hebrew servant which thou hast brought unto us came in unto me and to mock me. And came to pass I lifted up my voice and cried that he left his garment with me and fled out. It came to pass when his master heard the words of his wife, which he spake unto him, saying, After this manner did thy servant to me, that his wrath was kindled. Yeah. And who are you going to believe? Your wife or this slave you bought out of Egypt, or out of from the Ishmaelites? You're going to believe your wife. Matter of fact, if you're going to go to the court of law and you're a slave, and this is Potiphar's wife, who's the court's going to believe? Nothing's lining up for you here. And Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in the prison. Notice the king's prisoners. So here you have Potiphar. He's high enough in level to be able to throw people into that prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed Joseph's hand, all the prisoners that were in the prison, whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him, and all that he did made prosper. So here you have Joseph, and again, like I told you, there we go, 10 minutes through one chapter. Joseph was a trustworthy guy. We all have those types of people in our lives. And by the way, saying he made one mistake is not a big deal. He still didn't sin. But if that flirting or that enjoyment, that attention, and something that you crave, you got to watch out for it. And I don't know how you talk about this, but I guess we'll just go ahead and say it. Do you ever? It's my wife that says this on occasion too, but you ever notice how sometimes guys run off and you see the next one and she is nothing, homely compared to the wife? You ever notice that? Ever seen that before? Like, what in the world's going on here? I know that's horrible. Do we have one of these, Becca? Do we know? I can't talk about this, can I?
No, you're just fine.
Okay. And I'll tell you what the thing is. It isn't about looks. It's about attention. It's about compliments. It's about something different. And so just be be careful of all that stupid stuff. It's not worth it. Anything else I need to cover here? Anybody else have a point you want to throw in?
They had from my sister. He ran off. You know.
She's ugly?
Yeah. That's not to me anyway.
Yeah. Well, we have a problem here, Joe, because your sister looks like you.
Problem to you, I guess.
What's that? No, just slight resemblance.
No. She does look that much like her. But anyway,
She doesn't.
I don't think she does. But anyway, yeah.
Anything else you want to testify about here? Prove the point.
I've seen
You've
the
seen
woman
it?
they ran off with. Yeah, I was like, what is he thinking? But
Now you know.
yeah, that's what you're saying.
All right. Can't talk about much more about that. It'll probably step on somebody's toes. All right, let's go to chapter 40. This will be another 10 minutes. We'll just kind of fumble through this. Fumble for another 5. We'll be done. It'll be 5 till. Rough night. All right. Look at verse 1. It came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended the Lord their king of Egypt. So I'm not sure what a butler and a baker do. Maybe the baker burned the cookies. I have no idea. Maybe the butler spilled wine all over the floor. Who knows? It's not given. And Pharaoh was wroth against 2 of his officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in the ward in the house of the captain of the guard and in prison in the place where Joseph was bound. So remember, Joseph's in charge. And so now Joseph's going to be put in charge even of these. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them. And they continued a season in the ward. So remember, he was 17 years old when he was sold off. We're not sure how much time's passed here, but I don't imagine there's a lot. And they dreamed a dream, both of them. Each man his dream in one night. Each man according to the interpretation of his dream. The butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. Now, the only reason I think that God gave them the dream is because they're in the prison with Joseph. Not that God, and even then, I believe with the completion of the canon, the biblical dreams are not something that God uses anymore. But however, when we get now close to end times, then the Bible talks about this can start happening again. And Joseph came in unto them in the morning. Otherwise, you start having these weird dreams and you start trying to interpret them and all this sort of stuff. And I start talking about marshmallows again, and Angela's going to laugh at something about the marshmallows on the floor. I'm not sure what that was about. And Joseph came unto them in the morning and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. Well, yeah, they're in prison. I can't make that joke, can I? And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward in his Lord's house, saying, wherefore look you so sadly today? So apparently Joseph was in charge of the morale in this prison. And it was a cheery place, and these two, were happy. Now they're not. I don't get it. But they said to him, we have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said to him, do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me then, I pray you. So again, Joseph serving God. We've now added another layer onto this. Joseph did not do anything wrong and is now in prison for adultery that he didn't commit, attempted rape that he didn't commit. He didn't even get to adultery, but yet he's in prison. And so yet here he is, do not interpretations belong to God. He's still serving God. Bad things happen, he still serve God. And the chief butler took his dream to Joseph and said to him, in my dream, behold, a vine was before me. And the vine were 3 branches, and it was as though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. Joseph said to him, this is an interpretation of it. 3 branches are 3 days, yet within 3 days Pharaoh shall lift up thy head, restore it unto thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand after the former manner when thou was his butler. But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. So, butler forgot that. So now, can you picture the baker? Man, that's pretty cool. The baker's over there thinking, you know what? Can't wait to tell him my dream. Because I want to be out here in 3 days. I want to be back to baking, back to doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Verse 15. Oh, I'm sorry, verse 15. For indeed I was stolen out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing that should put me into this dungeon. And so notice he said first house, then he said dungeon. Prison of some sort. Alright, when the chief baker saw the interpretation was good. So here's the baker, right? Let me tell you mine. He said unto Joseph, also was in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head. In the uppermost basket there was all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. Yeah, sounds like a good dream. Then Joseph answered and said, this is interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee. See, baker's still thinking, now this is pretty cool. And shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee. He must have burned the toast. I'm not sure what the baker did. Left the stuff in the toaster a little extra time, and it gets too crunchy. Toast can't be too crunchy. And so, I'm not sure. Came past the 3rd day, which was the Pharaoh's birthday. They made a feast unto all the servants. He lifted up the head of his chief butler and the chief baker among the servants. He restored the chief butler unto his butlership again. And he gave the cup unto Pharaoh's hand. And he hanged the chief baker, and Joseph had interpreted to them. He yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgot him. So, let me ask you a question. What more should have gotten out of that story? Do you want to go to the next chapter? Just tell me exactly what happened. For me, there's important truth in each chapter. The first is, be careful around the opposite sex. And then the second one is, don't be a baker. Don't burn the toast. Don't burn the cookies. It's a common joke in our house. Lisa does not burn cookies very often, but she does on occasion. And when she does, then it makes it on to quick flash, it makes it on to everything else. There's old pictures of sailors in our house with one of her cookies in the mouth, and the other guy's trying to shut his jaw around it. So it's an old joke. Makes no sense, but we run with it. When you only have one thing you can criticize your wife for, then I guess that's it. That and the lack of shutting cabinet doors.
We fixed that though.
What?
We fixed that though.
Not on the refrigerator side.
2 cupboards.
And see, nobody else thinks of it because as they walk along, nothing happens. But then that one's out, it hits me right here. Where for them, it just harmlessly by their head. But I did solve that on half the kitchen, but I don't walk along that line over there. Do you want to do the next chapter? I haven't studied it yet. No? All right. We're like 20 minutes early, though. Oh, you're all for this? You made the trip all the way in, and now you're going to...
I'm like 20 minutes over already.
What?
So I'm 20 minutes over already.
That's true.
Give that man
Fun. All right, anybody else want to talk about anything else? You good? It is hot in here, is it not? We should have left the air conditioner on.
Didn't think about stuff. Fine. Of course, I looked for it early today.
No, it actually wasn't bad.
It's April.
Yeah. Okay. Make sure you're in place Sunday morning. Everything else will proceed as normal. We'll be back Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and pray. We'll be dismissed.